Good evening, India. This is the News Hour on Times Now. My name is Pranesh Roy. On day 3 of a story that Times Now has been tracking closely, news has broken out that, concerned by the alleged falsities in BBC's narrative, several intellectuals, officials, former members of intelligence agencies who were aware of the circumstances of the Gujarat riots of 2002, they have written an open letter criticizing the BJP for its one-sided, derogatory narrative against Prime Minister Modi. These intellectual viewers have implied that an attempt is being created to influence the outcome of elections and, of course, the minds of voting public in the run-up to the general elections of 2024. Whether the BBC is guilty of this particular charge or not is, of course, difficult to underline, but it is clear that BBC's documentary does suffer from certain problems in the manner in which it recounts the events of the time. Not only was the former BJP MP's commentary not taken on board in toto to reflect his sentiment, but even the Supreme Court verdict and its reasoning was overlooked by the filmmakers. Now, given the fact that in many situations in recent times, fake news has had a very big impact on the outcome of polls as well as in influencing public opinion, the government has taken the added precaution of banning because the US 2016 elections have had a massive impact on influencing the end result. The Congress and the opposition, however, have hit out at the government and the BJP for running scared of the truth, while there is no doubt that the BBC's film series is useful propaganda for the opposition. The government decision will give them, and is giving them already, fuel to suggest that the government has become or has something to hide. Now, before we go any further, let's first listen to the signatories of this letter that says that this is not a documentary by BBC, this is malicious, distortion and propaganda.
जो BBC है वो एक एजेंडा चलाता है, बेसिकली इंपीरियलिस्टिक माइंड है इनका, और वो उनसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होता कि भारत प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अध्यक्षता में प्रोग्रेस कर रहा है.
जो हम लोगों ने लिखा है, ये हमारे जैसे ही हम लोगों ने ये देखा तो ऐसा लगा कि ये कोई सही बात को दिखा ही नहीं रहे हैं. मोदी द क्वेश्चन, क्यों भाई? मोदी द क्वेश्चन का तो कोई मतलब ही नहीं निकलता है. ये आपने पहले से ही एक एजेंडा किया है कि मोदी क्वेश्चन मार्क है. ये साफ दर्शाता है कि इंडियननेस उनको पसंद नहीं है.
जिस चीज में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एसआईटी से जांच करवा करके 452 पृष्ठों की रिपोर्ट स्वीकार कर ली, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने हस्तक्षेप करके प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी को बेदाग बताया, उस पे अपने संदिग्ध स्रोतों से लेकर के झूठ का पुलिंदा पेश करना शर्म आनी चाहिए बीबीसी को.
Claim made by BBC that it is done after research itself is questionable. Mr. Modi has been democratically elected by Muslims, Christians, as well as other minorities and Hindus. He has been also considered as the most popular leader, and this is the real picture.
To create this kind of an atmosphere at this time, there is, I suspect, a strong domestic angle in the UK, perhaps against Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, perhaps trying to foment, some discord, some differences between the Hindu and Muslim communities in the UK. We have already seen efforts at that happen in the UK in recent weeks and months.
It does not respect India's democratic institutions. The fact that it was discussed repeatedly in Parliament, the fact that it went to the Supreme Court, the fact that it was exonerated in the Supreme Court. So that was one of the reasons why I was determined, as a student of history, as a person who's written a best-selling book on partition of Bengal, to expose this.
Now, these were some of the signatories to that letter that has been written against the BBC's attempt to paint a false narrative. Now, let's also play out what Swapan Das Gupta, former BJP MP, who's interviewed by the BJP for this, by the BBC, I beg your pardon, for this series, has told Times Now.
That when I was told about this documentary, I was told there was going to be a film being made. They were making a documentary on India under Modi, where they would also look, incidentally, where it was also look at his relationship with the 2002 Gujarat riots. Now, as things turn out, this was essentially, the first part was essentially only about the 2002 riots, which certainly was not, I didn't feel that was part of the original idea. Now, it was a very fairly exhaustive interview which they took of me. I think it went on for about an hour, which covered various things about what present, the CAA, Article 370, etc., a lot of them. Maybe some of those will be incorporated in subsequent episodes. Now, what I felt about my interventions on the Gujarat riots was that, they were taken in as a sort of pro forma of another view. It was just a sort of pro forma, and here there are some people who have another view, so a couple of sentences from me were just sort of incorporated in that. Where the main thrust of the argument was that, Modi is guilty, etc., That was their thing. I mean, I get the feeling it was a hatchet job which they were trying.
It was a hatchet job, says Swapan Das Gupta. Let's also play out Kanwal Sibal, the foreign secretary at the time of Gujarat riots. This is what he told Times Now.
The British government had absolutely no locus standi to conduct an inquiry or investigate something that is happening in a foreign country. This is gross interference in the internal affairs of other countries. If they wanted to get briefed, the right way to do diplomatically is either to ask their ambassador to come and speak at the right level, or call in the Indian High Commissioner in the UK and express their concerns, whatever they are, with regard to what is happening on the ground. But you do not interfere in a sovereign country.
Now, on the back of the decision to ban this film by the BBC, the opposition has come out and said that this is the guilty mind of the BJP. There's an attempt to hide something. Modi dar gaya is another taunt by the Congress. Let's open this up quickly. Sanju Verma, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Kailash Adhikari, political analyst, MD Governance Now, Deepak Vora, former ambassador, signatory of this letter, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress, Lokesh Jindal, Congress leader, Professor Atikur Rahman, political analyst, completes the panel. Now, good evening to all of you. I want to begin with you, Ambassador Vora. This letter that you have also signed, this is not just a strongly worded letter, but some of the things that you've highlighted is that instead of focusing on the India question, the Modi question, here are some of the other things that the BBC should focus on.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be on your magnificent channel, which is very highly rated, and you are, of course, one of the best anchors. Sir, give me a couple of minutes. The Bluster and Bullshit Corporation, forgive me, we also know it as the BBC, they don't like India. It embodies the white man's frozen mindset of his self-styled burden. Remember the white man's burden, Ganga Din and all that nonsense? Tries to retain some influence through fake news. In my postings overseas, more than one head of government pointedly asked me if London still had influence in Indian affairs, as this was the claim of my British counterparts. Yes, I would respond, about as much as you have on Mars. Now, this latest two-part series on India's democratically elected and insanely popular Prime Minister, global statesman he is, claims to examine how Narendra Modi's premiership has been dogged by persistent allegations of the attitude of his government towards India's Muslim population and of controversial policies such as the removal of Article 370. This is arrant nonsense. It has been dismissed as such and banned by my government. Sir, let me stand this argument on its head. The BBC's reporting has been dogged by persistent allegations of racial and political bias. Has the network's secret team, quote unquote, surveyed how many of India's 180 Muslims, there are 8 million in Kashmir, opposed revocation of Article 370 or even knew that it existed? I would love to see the poll. My own recent, I repeat, my own recent secret survey in England suggests that the BBC is very upset about India's magnificent progress and has issued orders to its journalists to denigrate India. Sir, who are the BBC fellows today? These are the guys whose that grew up on stories from their parents and grandparents of the white man's burden. The British Raj, Chota Hazari, Bada Hazari, dozens of servants. I'm sitting in Bengaluru right now. I know what they talk about. I know what they think. The reality, we are on a roll with an eminently achievable target to be a developed nation by 2047, fifth largest economy in the world, going to be the third largest in 3 years, the world's third most powerful military. The best diplomatic service in human history. Is the world India ready? I think the BBC is not India ready. Sir, we've recently had the first virtual summit, Voice of the Global South. Do you know, sir, we had 48 African countries and many more. Not all the G20 countries participated, but we invited everybody. 48 African countries out of 54 did. Let me just conclude this. The 3 African countries where I'm privileged to serve as special advisor to their prime ministers participated, and then all 3 told me we have chosen India as our developmental partner because the West is useless. My response was the catch line from the Pepsi ad. Yahi hai right choice, baby.
Okay, Ambassador Vora. Now, while you were, saying your piece, one of our guests, Lokesh Jindal, had a wry smile on his face. And I know what he's going to say, but Sanju Verma, I'm sure you are aware of what the Congress and the TMC have said about the government's decision to ban this. They are saying Modi dar gaya.
Pranesh, first let me come to the TMC. TMC leader Mamata Banerjee in 2012, she actually arrested a professor of Jadavpur University, Professor Ambikesh Mahapatra. And what was his fault? The fact that he shared a harmless meme about Mamata Banerjee. This is the same Mamata Banerjee who arrested BJP's youth leader Priyanka Sharma in the run-up to Lok Sabha 2019, again for sharing an innocuous meme. So we don't need certificates from Mamata Banerjee कि कौन डर गया और कौन डरा नहीं. Speaking of Congress, let's be very clear. Gujarat election se pehle, what was Congress saying? And the Gujarat election results were out, just a couple of months back. Is baar to Narendra Modi is going to lose because of the 20-year anti-incumbency. We will form the government. The historically low number of seats, 17. सिर्फ 17 सीट्स मिली कांग्रेस को एंड द गुजरात का जनता शोड द मिरर टू कांग्रेस. पर अभी भी ये आईना देखकर जो सच्चाई है उसको कबूल नहीं करना चाहते. I have this to say, just taking off from where the respected ambassador made some pertinent points. Let's be very clear, Pranesh. There is a letter written by 13 judges, by 133 bureaucrats, including 33 ambassadors and 156 decorated army veterans. And you know what they've said? They've said we stand in solidarity with Narendra Modi. I will just end by saying one thing. Who is the BBC to meddle in India's judicial process on the 24th of June 2022?
No one, Sanju Verma. BBC is no...
Pranesh, 10 seconds. On the 24th of June 2022, the Supreme Court, in a judgment led by Justice A.M. Khanvilkar, clearly said there was no criminal conspiracy by
No, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. In fact, we have talked about this over the last 2 days. But just to, before I come to you, Lokesh Jindal, I'm sure you're all ready. The letter begins by saying this, and allow me to read this. Not this time, not with our leader, not with India, never on our watch.
Yes, good evening, Pranesh. Pranesh, we have turned into a society that is searching for truth in a movie and that is searching for a lie in a documentary. Agreed. The BBC, it has come up with certain reports where the Prime Minister, who has been exonerated by the Supreme Court, is being held guilty, and it hurts our pride. If Prime Minister is a democratically elected leader, then let me tell you, the Kashmiri community is the electorate that elected that leader. When the leader was silent, when that entire community was being demonized, when that entire portrayed in some form of a picture, where a narrative was being set, rather than coming out in protection of theirs who elected him, as there were soaps that were given, he went out openly to say that that's the right narrative. Now, this is the double standards. The entire country would have stood with the Prime Minister today had he not sided the Kashmir files, which demonizes one entire community. Right now, what BBC did, in fact, the entire world, it has made us on some form of a joke, because we were the one who were propagating a movie that had all facts which were narrated incorrectly, improperly, so as to serve a political agenda. And right now, BBC, it just comes out with a documentary and suddenly come up with all their, big theories, big facts to defend the Prime Minister.
Judgment.
No, there is no big theory. No, Lokesh Jindal, there is no big theory. Ambassador Vora, and the reason I began with Ambassador Vora, because, he would put this in the right context. Sanju Verma, 1 minute. Sanju Verma, 1 minute. Now, Lokesh Jindal and Kamruzaman Chaudhary, the reason I started the show with Ambassador Vora is because, as a decorated diplomat, he would give us the right perspective. Now, you can say that Sanju Verma will defend it because this is a party and she will defend the party. Are you saying all these people who are signatories to the letter, they are also of the BJP?
Why didn't these signatories come up when the Kashmir files was being promoted politically, when the tax soaps were given, when the government came out to say that, okay, the government officials would be given holidays so that they can watch the movie, the entire society must watch the movie because it puts the history in the right context? Where were these signatories when an entire community was being shammed, was being targeted, was being tagged? Where was this community? If they ought to act as liberals, if they ought to stick to the principles of liberalism.
Okay, so I understand. Okay, you made it more specific. Sanju Verma, he is saying, Sanju Verma, the charge is, it's a straightforward one. Lokesh Jindal is saying, and this is what the Congress has said, that why did you ban it? What are you trying to hide? Why ban the film?
Pranesh, let's be very clear. I don't need to remind the Congress that be it the first amendment to the Constitution by Jawaharlal Nehru, which curtailed free speech, be it the 1988 anti-defamation bill which Rajiv Gandhi wanted to bring, be it the 1975 emergency by Indira Gandhi, the Congress is the last party which should lecture on free speech. Have you forgotten that you banned a book called The Red Sari by Javier Moro? चलिए पहले Javier Moro की book को इंडिया में published होने दीजिए. So don't give us lecture on Article 19,
let us stick to the
Article
topic.
21, Article 14, Article 15. I don't want lectures from you.
But Sanju Verma, the Congress is saying that you could have said this all this while, but not anymore because here's your government banning the film. I'll come back to you, Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Let me bring in Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Let me bring in Sanju Verma. You'll have time. Yeah. I am sure he will say the same thing. Then you respond to him, Mr. Chaudhary.
Yeah, Pranesh. One thing is very clear tonight. Having listened to the panelists out here so far and the contents of the letter, a very, very brief one-liner has gone out to the ecosystem. Defend the Sahib at any cost. Defend the Shahenshah at any cost. Whether it is curtailing the freedom of speech, whether you
Kamruzaman Chaudhary,
kill the messenger, it hardly matters.
Kamruzaman Chaudhary, are you saying that Ambassador Vora? No, 1 minute.
Otherwise,
Kamruzaman Chaudhary, absolutely just said 1 minute. I don't mean to cut you short, just 1 minute. Are you saying that Ambassador Vora and many like him who are signatories to the letter are part of some ecosystem? What is this? What are you trying to say?
Of course. These people, they have come on television. I don't disrespect the positions they hold. They held earlier. But right now, these people are very much a part of the ecosystem. If you have 300 people signing a letter, Pranesh, tonight I am challenging you. I can get 60% of India's population who will vouch the BBC documentary and say the contents of the BBC documentary cannot be discounted at face value. There must have been some fire
60%.
There is a smoke because of
you are confident about the 60%.
Now you tell me, Pranesh, Why did the United States of America deny visa to Narendra Modi when he was the chief minister?
But what has the US done after that, Mr. Kamruzaman Chaudhary? What are you?
When he was the
Mr. Chaudhary, you know, this is you are being selective. You are trying to be clever by half, Mr. Mr. Chaudhary, you know that this is the stunt that you are pulling out will not sustain. Let me bring in Kailash Adhikari. Kailash Adhikari, all these people, retired judges, diplomats, all these people who are speaking for the Prime Minister and for the country are being labelled as part of an ecosystem to save the Sahib, as Mr. Chaudhary says.
Pranesh, I believe that no one needs to do that duty because of the stature that our Honorable Prime Minister actually holds. He's not only a statesman, he's not only just a leader of India, but now he's a global leader. And even in the Australian Parliament, the Australian Prime Minister had said that we have not seen, that the world has not seen a greater leader than Narendra Modi ji. So that puts the opposition all the rant to silence. Secondly, Pranesh, India overtaking the UK to be the 5th largest economy, I think has sent stomach diarrhea to the British Broadcasting Corporation. And similarly, the success of the film Kashmir Files, which has spelt nothing but the truth, is sending diarrhea to the opposition. Now the public broadcaster, or any public broadcaster for that matter, Pranesh, the national broadcaster has certain, responsibilities of not only telling the truth, but also of maintaining diplomatic relations. I believe that the British Broadcasting Corporation, in its utter attempt to disrespect the sovereignty of the 5th largest economy of the world, has gone too far in showing lies and in trying to run an objective or an agenda. That is, they have completely lacked objectivity, and they are running an agenda which, not only harms them, but puts us in a bad light, which is not going down well with India and the government. And I believe that the stand that has been taken by the Indian government is completely right. And to the 302 signatories who we held, the society holds in high esteem, is a testament to the fact.
Okay, Sanju Verma, yes.
May I come in? Yes. Pranesh, taking off from where Kailash Adhikari spoke, I have this to say. Here one of the Congress Darbari said 60% of the country believes what the BBC documentary has to say. If you're so confident, try and win some seats for your Congress party, which is electorally vanquished. You have no locus standi, and I'll tell you what. How popular is Narendra Modi? UAE, United Arab Emirates, confirmed the Zayed medal on him. Then he was awarded the Seoul Peace Prize in 2018 for his economic policies. Then he was awarded the UN Champions of the Earth Award in 2018. Then he was awarded the first ever Philip Kotler Presidential Award. Then he was given the Grand Collar of the State of Palestine Award. Then he was given the Amir Abdullah Khan Award of Afghanistan. Then he was given the King Abdullah Aziz Award of Saudi Arabia.
Kamruzaman Chaudhary, I am coming to you for a response. I am coming. You will have your time to counter what Sanju Verma is saying.
Narendra Modi has got more awards than the number of years that the Congress ruled India.
Okay. Okay, let him respond now. Sanju Verma, you've made your point. You've made your point. Yes, Mr. Chaudhary.
Lies and lies to make it look like a truth.
Why did the Prime Minister not get the Philip Kotler Award?
They are counting on lies over lies so that it may sound to be the truth. But ultimately, one question which answer we have never got was, why was Narendra Modi denied a visa by the United States government? What was the reaction of the
let her answer
Indian
that. She wants to now answer that. Now listen to her. You've asked her a question. Sanju Verma is responding to you. Mr. Chaudhary.
No, let me finish, Pranesh. This is...
Go ahead, Sanju Verma.
Okay. Pranesh, these people remember about, how many times Prime Minister was denied a visa. Do you know that for the first time in June 2016, Narendra Modi addressed the US Congress. And before Narendra Modi, only 3 Prime Ministers in India's history have addressed the US Congress. And there were 9 times that the US Congress gave a standing ovation. There were 33 times that an official intervention was made to applaud Narendra Modi. Everybody knows that yoga is something that India has
Verma,
yoga originated from India.
Go
Then
back
it
into
took a
history
Narendra Modi
and see how
to
India was
ensure that
treated
the
by
United
foreign
Nations
governments.
start
We were the leader of the
celebrating
non-aligned
yoga
movement.
day
Do you know
internationally.
that?
Thanks to whom?
We had championed the Palestinian cause. Now the Hindutvawadis and the Zionists are friends, bedmates. The Hindutvawadis and the Zionists, we have changed the entire policy. Our entire foreign policy is crooked up by this government.
Kashmir files should be banned. Since you seem to be a beacon of free speech, why were you saying Kashmir files should be banned? Pehle iska jawab do. Why were you saying? Why was the Congress party?
Lokesh Jindal, no, 1 minute. No, let's not talk over each other, please. Please, Mr. Chaudhary, let Lokesh Jindal, your colleague, come in. He has an answer to that. Yes, Lokesh Jindal.
See, first of all, Kashmir files needs to be banned because it is historically incorrect. The person who was shown speaking on addressing the people was shown, whereas history knows that it was the BJP government that was in power. VP Singh was the prime minister when this exodus happened.
VP Singh was not a
Secondly,
BJP.
Madam, please do not interject. Please
Let him have his say, Sanju Verma. Let him have his say. Yes, Mr. Jindal.
And secondly, Kashmiris are Indians. I mean, for heaven's sake, stop putting a picture that Kashmiris are not Indians. And how can an Indian movie...
No, all very well for you to say about... 1 minute. No, Mr. Jindal. All very well for you to now say that Kashmiris are Indians and that, the genocide was mass exodus. This is the position of the then government.
Pranesh,
what was done for the justice of the community?
We have to leave it to the historians. We have to leave it to the administrators.
Let's leave it to the historians. Why are we leaving it to the BBC?
Or a genocide.
Why are we leaving it to the BBC? Have you seen Mr. Lokesh Jindal? Let's rise above. Okay, allow me to ask you a straightforward question. Now, do you agree with yes or no? It's that kind of a question. Shouldn't the BBC be documenting what Winston Churchill did in the Bengal famine? He presided over it.
Yes, it must. It should.
Okay.
It should. Being talked about over there, what happened? There are two views. Similarly, there are two views with respect to what happened in 1990. When the government sticks to a single narrative, when the government tries to...
Okay, let me bring in Atikur Rahman.
Narrative.
I don't have much time on the show. Atikur Rahman, sorry I couldn't come to you earlier. What do you make of this letter written by eminent people, diplomats, former judges, IPS officers, and the government's decision to impose a ban on the film?
Thank you, Pranesh. Pranesh, I believe the locus to speak on this subject lies with the victims of the Gujarat riots, especially the wife of Ehsan Jafri and also Bilkis Banu. Here you are politicizing the entire debate. It is politics, which has not, given any sense of justice and sense of closure to the victims.
To the statement.
The victims stand today. You are pinpointing the Supreme Court. I would say that so far Mr. Modi enjoys the clout of political power. Justice won't be done. Justice delayed. Will be justice denied.
But this is not about justice, Mr. Rahman. You're mixing two things. If you want justice, go to the courts again. You don't. Are you saying that the Supreme Court will not give you justice and that the BBC is the greatest arbiter of justice? Are you wanting justice from the BBC?
Said by the victims. They are still suffering.
Mr. Atikur Rahman साहब आप समझ नहीं रहे सर आप जस्टिस के लिए कोर्ट में जाइए ना दिस इज नॉट अबाउट जस्टिस विल द बीबीसी गिव यू जस्टिस
Yes, that's the point.
Or the BBC will give you justice.
After 20 years,
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The letter written by the Diplomat says that BBC India's The Modi Question is delusions of the British imperial resurrection. Here is Mr. Atikur Rahman saying that we are hopeful of justice from the BBC. Okay, the BBC is over the Supreme Court for Atikur Rahman. Unfortunately, I've run out of time. I thank all of you. Sanju Verma, Kailash Adhikari, Ambassador Vora, Lokesh Jindal, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, Professor Rahman. Thank you for joining us. Debate.